friends are synths.
Recently, I've been trying to make some progress on my KOSMO DIY modular synthesizer build, and as part of that I was reminded that there was something that I've wanted to put together for quite some time and just haven't got around to yet. Specifically, I'm talking about one of these things. Now this is what's known as a format jumbler, and the basic premise of a format jumbler is that you can take multiple different systems and interface them all within a neat little package. And this is especially useful when you're looking at something like test equipment, because test equipment uses banana jacks normally, which are these things, and if you want to interface a banana jack system with a regular kind of modular Eurorack system, you have to do all sorts of stupid things like use these connectors which go into this and the ground comes off it and this. It's just a huge pain in the arse, trust me on that. Now this problem has been compounded as I've continued on and made progress with my KOSMO synthesizer, because KOSMO uses 6.35mm jacks, or 1/4 inch jacks for those of you in the States, whereas the Eurorack system obviously uses the wee mini jacks. And this means that if I want to connect all of them up together, which I obviously do, then I have to use a whole bunch of these things, which are, you know, the mono kind of mini jack to jack converter adapter things. And these, unless you buy really expensive ones, are pretty shoddy and don't work all that well. They kind of get loose and you can never tell if they're connecting properly and all that kind of thing. And ultimately, why would you buy expensive ones? Because these get lost all the time. Anyway, I decided that the solution to this was to build my own module, which would be a format jumbler that would live inside of my KOSMO modular synthesizer. And I thought I'd share with you my experience of doing that, because I had to kind of think about the panel for building my own modules, which I've not done before, but also this might be an interesting and useful project for somebody who's kind of starting in electronics and who wants to wire something up on their own. Specifically because you don't have to build this inside a modular case. You can also build it inside, you know, like a Hammond kind of guitar pedal box, and I think I'll probably do another one at some point to have like a wee desktop unit. Now you can buy these made professionally by people who are far, you know, more accomplished than I am. However, the problem with them is that they're made in America normally, and they usually only are stocked in places like Taman in the EU, and the price of them is quite high, not just because they're boutique things, but also because, you know, the EU is now separate to the UK, so you have to import it via America, and then it just becomes a huge pain in the arse. So it's a fairly straightforward circuit to build, and I thought I would give it a wee bash. Now, in order to build this thing, I had to consider what I was going to do for the actual panels, because I've never actually put together my own circuit on, you know, a kind of modular way or in a modular way before. And so I didn't want to use metal like aluminium for the panels. I know lots of other people do, and they do it quite successfully. However, I believe there are grounding issues occasionally when you use metal front panels and you don't really know what you're doing, like me. But also, I don't really like the sharp edges. I don't like having to work with metal or painting it or anything like that. And I wanted something a wee bit more brightly coloured and nice to work with. And so what I found was there's a company in the UK that will cut acrylic sheets for you down to particular sizes. And they're not all that expensive to get them in the size you need for something like the KOSMO you know, modular system. I think it was like £1 or £2 per sheet. However, you do have to pay a wee bit for shipping, so it's good to batch them all together. Anyway, I bought a whole bunch of them to experiment with, and I started out, you know, with this grossly, well, you know, this was clearly an error. I thought this would be a normal module size, but there you go. Anyway, I've been experimenting on this first, because there's a few different things you need to think about when you're talking about acrylic. First of all, acrylic is very easy to break and crack, and actually when I first started making this particular module, well, yeah, you can probably guess what happened. Yeah, I fucked it up, and I cracked the thing because I was leaning a wee bit too hard. So you have to be really careful, go really slowly when you're drilling, be really deliberate and all that kind of thing. The second problem is that in order to get acrylic sheets in this kind of size, the kind of minimum depth that you'll find is usually about 3mm, and the problem with that is that at 3mm often you'll find that your jack sockets aren't long enough to go through the plastic and then be tightened on the other side. And this is a real kind of issue, because if you can't secure your jack sockets, then you're kind of stuffed, because that's the, the whole point. Now, one of the ways that I found to get around this was to use one of these things. This is what's known as a countersunk drill bit, and it comes from a set of them. And you can see at the front here, it's got your regular drill bit, and on the back, it's also got an additional drill piece. And this means that you can drill your hole to taste, and then keep drilling a wee bit, and this will give you a nice countersunk hole, which will let your kind of jack sockets rest in, and mean, you know, there's less space for them to have to fit in. Now, I tried this out on my demo panel here, and hopefully you can see it did actually work really nicely. And I was kind of surprised at that, because one of my questions or concerns about using a countersunk drill bit was, well, how do you know how deep to go with the counters, thinking surely you'll end up just drilling a bigger hole. And I knew that was something that I would fuck up if anybody would. However, it actually worked really well. Now, unfortunately, when I tried this on the actual panel, I decided that I wasn't actually going to countersink the holes, because the jack sockets I was using I thought would be okay. They were just long enough. And also I was a wee bit concerned after I cracked the first panel that you know, countersinking all the holes would put a bit more stress on the acrylic. So I didn't bother, and luckily the jack sockets that I got them specifically from Thonk here in the UK, and they're just long enough, if you can see the mini jacks here, just long enough that they actually made it through and I could tighten them in. But I could probably have done with countersinking them. But anyway, if you're going to be doing something like this, I would look at Thonk, because they have mini jack sockets that are a wee bit longer than you'll usually find. In terms of the signal flow for this, it's fairly straightforward, but basically I've got a bunch of different rows here, and you can see on the bottom that I've got fairly straightforward 3 rows that go from mini jack. This is mono mini jack. It goes up to mono big jack, or mono 1/4 inch. This one is, if I can feel it correctly, this is an RCA connection, and then I've got my banana connection at the end. So I've got 3 rows that go like that, and they go along that way. Now up here, I've also got 2 pairs of rows, or 2 pairs of 2 rows, and this is because this one here is a stereo mini jack. And if you plug into this, the left and right will go here, left and right go here, and left and right go here with the mono mini jack, and that's all the way up. And this means that I've got a whole variety of different ways that I can connect up my systems. Now, in terms of how this is wired up, it's fairly simple. It looks kind of scary at the back, but you can see that the black cable is the ground, and then all you need to do is figure out what part of your socket here carries the signal, and then connect that across here. So essentially the ground will be connected all over the back, and then you just have to connect up your signal in the appropriate place. And to be honest, I'm not somebody that even really understood how to figure out which part of the connection was left and which part was right. So this is a good exercise to kind of figure that kind of thing out if you're interested in getting in, you know, starting building your own kind of stuff. Now, the one thing I forgot to mention actually on the front is this kind of weird black connection up here, which, you know, is a banana connection, but it's stuck up the top. And the reason this is here is because, unlike other connections like, you know, jack sockets for mini jack or whatever, banana connections have the ground separate, so you connect it separately into a different post. And if you can see in the back, up there, that one is connected to all the different grounds, and that's kind of one of the main ground points on the back. Now, if you are going to be building one of these things, it is passive, meaning it doesn't need any power, so you don't have to worry about how you're going to power it, you know, from a 9-volt battery or anything like that. And if you're putting in a modular case, it means that you don't have to use up some of your precious, you know, headers either. So that's it. That's my format Jumbler box. If you've got any questions about this, you can feel free to ask, and I'll tell you all of my tales of woe. However, this is the first successful DIY modular things I've done that I haven't done on a PCB that I bought from somebody else. So I'm fairly chuffed with this. If I can do this, you can definitely do this. And maybe this will inspire you to go build your own, I don't know, format box. Until next time, I'm going to go screw it into the case now and get it to work and hopefully not destroy anything in the process.